Stefon, you said in 2020 that Ugg boots are only for girls getting coffee. What do you think now?
I recant my statement. I am now the girl getting coffee, and I'm a matcha man now.
Oh, you look very fly getting a matcha.
Thank you.
Did anyone ask you about the incentive?
Nah, but you got a couple extra dollars.
You like a couple extra dollars?
What y'all want for the holiday? Just kidding. Thank y'all so much.
Advertise and shit.
All right.
Doesn't matter what he says, oh, let me heal you. Or, I'm gonna be good to you.
Like one time he just told me, it was like, let me heal you. Give me a chance for me to heal you. And it's like, okay.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Stefon, the baby boomers crew. The baby boomers? Who is that? You? Oh, my personal life? I told you about that. We don't talk too much about my personal life, but I heard about it.
Any celebrations that we'll see in the...
We'll see.
Do you look forward to the battle, though? With Alexander, y'all have got a little bit of a history. Y'all have gone toe-to-toe. Do you look forward to competing with him?
I could say yeah, but it's no different than I approach any other week. I'm not going out there trying to prove nothing. I ain't trying to prove each and every other week, every play, every day. Try to earn it during the week in practice. Get on the same page as my quarterback. I don't really get into all that extra shit.
Was it tough for you to date again?
It's definitely tough dating in your 30s. I never really been a dating person. I've always been in long relationships since I was like 21.
With Stefon, how has he inspired you?
I will never complain about my job because he has to do two different things. Not only do you have to study, you also have to get physical. And you have to be in bed at a certain time. You're literally in the military. I work hard, but you really work hard. I don't really have a sleep schedule. I don't even like to map out my day.
You got a new man. Are the sparks sparking?
Sparkling, honey. 4th of July.
How did you guys meet? Did you reach out to him?
No, you're not supposed to reach out to a man. It was like mutual friends. I thought he was cute. I was like, oh, you gotta be mine.
Are you a football fan now?
Yeah, I'm a football fan, honey. I be in the screen on Sunday every day cursing people out. Pass the ball!
So have you gotten to go and watch him?
Not yet, because I've been preparing for my album. After this whole album thing, I'm going to every single game. Every single one of them.
So you're in a relationship. How did you meet this man?
It wasn't a DM thing. I could feel the vibe that he liked me, but he never approached me. But I always heard he was into me. He was very respectful and stuff like that. I was like, no matter how much times you go to the club and think that this is gonna distract you, you know what you have to do to move on. And we just talked. We got to know each other. We wasn't doing too much though. It got to the point that it was like, damn, we talked for hours.
Are you entering your WAG era? Are you gonna be at the games?
Yeah.
You think you'll go on the field?
I don't know.
What happens when silence starts connecting dots no one ever asked to be connected? Because that's exactly where this story sits right now. No press conference, no long explanation, just lawsuits, cryptic posts, and people on the outside trying to figure out how so many unrelated moments suddenly feel tied together. And when the internet senses gaps, it fills them fast. At the center of it all is Stefon Diggs, an NFL star whose name hasn't just been trending for football lately, but for something far messier. And the deeper you look, the less clean the timeline becomes. It didn't start loud. It started with one person. A man named Christopher Blake Griffin came forward claiming something serious happened between him and Diggs back in 2023. His story included accusations that quickly spread across social media, pulling Diggs into a narrative he hadn't publicly addressed before. There were no dramatic interviews from Diggs, no emotional statements. Instead, he responded the way many high-profile figures do, through the courts. Diggs filed a lawsuit saying the claims were false and damaging. And just like that, the story shifted from internet chatter to a legal standoff. Griffin didn't back down. He countersued. Now there were two sides, two legal teams, and a situation that officially moved beyond gossip. Nothing had been proven. No rulings, just active cases and a lot of people watching closely. But if that's where the story ended, it probably wouldn't still be trending, because it didn't stay contained for long. Weeks later, another name started floating through timelines, not because of a lawsuit, not because of a formal accusation, but because of a few short posts that felt loaded. A man known online as Bibby, or Bibby, Banks began tweeting things that made people pause. He didn't name names at first. He didn't spell anything out. He talked about conversations he'd had, things he'd kept private, lines that sounded less like jokes and more like hints, the kind of wording that invites speculation without confirming anything. And that's what made it stick. People started asking questions. Why now? Why speak at all? Was this connected to the lawsuit everyone was already talking about? Or was it something else entirely? Then someone noticed something most people missed. A screenshot began circulating, a private message exchange that dated back months, long before this second wave of attention. In it, someone reached out to Bibby asking why he'd unfollowed or pulled back from comments involving Diggs. Bibby's reply was polite, calm, almost cautious. He talked about respecting privacy, about timing, about letting someone tell their story when it was right. And then came the detail that made people sit up. The person messaging him wasn't a random fan. It was Christopher Blake Griffin, the same man currently locked in a legal back and forth with Diggs. The timestamp mattered. October, before the internet went into overdrive, before the second round of speculation hit. That's when the narrative shifted. Not because it proved anything, but because it complicated everything. Two people, separate moments, one quiet overlap. And that's where coincidence starts feeling uncomfortable for viewers. Because legally, none of this changes the facts. But psychologically, it adds weight. When unrelated stories begin brushing against each other, people don't see them as isolated anymore. They start looking for patterns, even if there aren't any. And that's the danger zone for public perception. One allegation can be dismissed. Two stories invite debate. Three overlapping situations. That's when the internet starts drawing conclusions long before the truth ever shows up. To be clear, nothing about Bibby's post directly accused Diggs of a crime. No police reports, no filings, just implication. And implication online often travels faster than evidence, especially when someone already under scrutiny chooses silence. But while the internet was piecing things together, real life kept moving. Because at the same time all of this was bubbling online, Diggs' personal life was being presented in a completely different light. Cardi B had just given birth to his child, a baby boy. Photos followed, Patriots gear, loving captions, public affection, moments that looked stable, happy, grounded. And that contrast was jarring. On one side, family imagery. On the other, growing controversy. For some people, that made the rumors feel worse. For others, it made them feel cruel. Either way, the timing amplified everything. Joy and chaos don't usually coexist quietly online. And this wasn't the only legal weight Diggs was carrying. As people dug deeper, more details resurfaced. A paternity situation with another woman that had recently been confirmed. A past lawsuit involving an ex-girlfriend that had never fully disappeared from public memory. None of these cases were new on their own, but together, they created volume. And volume changes how stories land. When someone appears repeatedly in legal or personal disputes, regardless of how those situations end, it starts shaping something powerful. Not a verdict, not a conclusion, but a narrative. And narratives don't need proof to spread. They feed on repetition, on timing, on the idea that if smoke keeps appearing, people assume there must be a fire somewhere nearby. That's when the questions change. At first, the public asks, did this happen? They want facts. They want confirmation. But after the second or third situation surfaces, that question quietly shifts into something more dangerous. Why does this keep happening? And once that shift happens, fairness often takes a backseat to pattern hunting. That's exactly when the conversation around Stefon Diggs took a darker turn online. The focus moved away from specific claims and towards speculation about his private life. Not based on statements he made, not based on interviews, confessions, or verified evidence, but on assumptions, on stereotypes, on the internet's long-standing habit of filling silence with whatever theory fits best. People began dissecting everything. His fashion choices, his social circle, his demeanor, who he stood next to, who he didn't. None of it tied to any confirmed fact, none of it proving anything, but all of it framed as reading between the lines, as if projection itself were evidence. And that's where it's important to pause, because speculation about someone's identity, especially without confirmation, often says more about the audience than the person being discussed. Diggs has never publicly defined himself in the way people online are trying to define him now. He hasn't claimed a label, he hasn't denied one either. He's largely said nothing at all. But the silence didn't slow the conversation, it accelerated it. Rumors layered on top of allegations. Allegations stacked on top of older controversies. And before long, the original details barely mattered anymore. What mattered was the feeling that there was too much smoke to ignore, even if no one could clearly explain where it was coming from. And silence, fair or not, is rarely neutral on the internet. To some people, silence looks like discipline, like legal strategy, like someone choosing not to feed the chaos. To others, it reads as avoidance, or fear, or guilt. And to many, it feels unfinished, like a story that stopped mid-sentence. That's why silence can become its own kind of statement, even when it isn't meant to be one. Which brings us back to the real question at the center of this entire situation. Is this simply a case of multiple unrelated events colliding at the worst possible moment? A legal dispute, a few vague online posts, and personal matters all overlapping in a way that creates the illusion of connection? Or is this an example of how unresolved narratives stack over time until the internet decides there must be something more underneath, even without confirmation? Right now, what we actually know is limited. Lawsuits are still unfolding. Allegations remain unproven. Bibi Banks has not formally accused Diggs of wrongdoing. And no court has ruled on guilt or innocence. Everything else lives in the space between implication and interpretation. And that space is loud, because when stories pile up this fast, the truth doesn't always rise to the surface. Sometimes it gets buried under reactions, under assumptions, and under the growing pressure for someone to explain themselves long before the facts ever do. Maybe clarity will come through the courts, maybe statements will be made, or maybe this fades the way so many internet storms do, leaving behind questions that never quite get answered. Either way, this situation has become less about one accusation and more about how quickly narratives form when silence meets speculation. How fast perception hardens into belief, and how difficult it is to undo once the internet decides it's seen enough. Because once that door opens, it's hard to close. The internet doesn't wait for conclusions. It writes them in real time. And if you want to stay ahead of stories like this, before the narratives settle and the facts get blurred, make sure you're subscribed. I break down what's happening, what's missing, and what most people overlook while everyone else is rushing to pick a side. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this is coincidence, timing, or something deeper? And as always, I'll keep watching to see what comes next.